Welcome to CreepyTalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1. The Date That Shouldn't Have Happened. I had always considered myself cautious, not paranoid, just careful. I never believed in meeting strangers from dating apps without knowing a little about them first. Yet somehow that caution didn't stop me from swiping right on Alex Mercer. Alex's profile picture had him leaning casually against a wall, his piercing green eyes staring directly into the camera. There was something magnetic about his smile. Not the kind that felt rehearsed, but the kind that made you forget the world existed for a moment. His bio was simple: adventure seeker, night owl, coffee addict. Let's see where life takes us. The first message he sent was charming in its simplicity. I'm bad at small talk, but I promise I'm not boring. Want to meet for coffee? I hesitated for a moment, reminding myself that I didn't even know this person, but curiosity got the better of me. I agreed. The cafe he suggested was a small, dimly lit place tucked between two high-rise buildings in the heart of the city. It had a retro feel, the kind that made you feel like you'd stepped into a different decade. When I arrived, Alex was already there, sitting in a corner booth, staring at his phone. He looked up as I approached. His smile was even more magnetic in person. "Hi," he said, voice smooth, almost hypnotic. "You're exactly like your photos." I chuckled nervously and sat down. The conversation started normally. Coffee preferences, favorite books, movies. But there was something slightly off about him. His eyes didn't just look at me. They seemed to study me, scanning for something I couldn't quite place. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. He had a way of making time dissolve around him, pulling me into his stories and laughter. By the time we left the cafe, the sun had already disappeared behind the city skyline, leaving streets bathed in orange and gray twilight. "That was fun," he said, sliding his phone back into his pocket. "Want to take a walk? There's a little park nearby. I think you'd like it." I hesitated. It was late. My instincts screamed at me to say no, to call a cab, to go home. But I didn't. I nodded. The park was smaller than I expected, almost hidden between buildings. Streetlights flickered, casting elongated shadows that danced along the cracked pavement. It should have felt romantic, walking under the dim glow of the lamps. But something about the way Alex moved, the way he seemed to glide from shadow to shadow, made me uneasy. Halfway through the park, he stopped near a fountain that had long stopped flowing. He turned to me, eyes suddenly intense. "You trust me, don't you?" I laughed nervously. I guess so." "Good," he said, and for a moment the charm was gone. His smile twisted slightly, almost too sharp, and I noticed his fingers tapping a rapid, almost rhythmic pattern on his leg. "Because tonight is going to be different." The words sent a shiver down my spine, but I laughed it off, pretending to brush them aside. Maybe it was the nerves. Maybe it was the darkness playing tricks on me. We continued walking, but I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way shadows seemed to linger unnaturally long. How distant sounds of the city were muted, as if the park existed in a bubble. The normal city noise, the distant hum of cars, the chatter of pedestrians, was gone. Only us. "That way," Alex said, pointing down a narrow alley that seemed even darker than the park. "I don't think I want to go there," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Maybe we should head back to the main street?" He tilted his head, studying me. Then with a slow smile, he said, "It's safer here." Trust me. Something inside me screamed, run. But before I could react, he had taken my hand. Cold, firm, anchoring me in place. The alley was narrow, walls pressing in from both sides, graffiti stretching across the bricks like warnings I couldn't read fast enough. As we walked, the sound of our footsteps echoed unnaturally loud, almost as if someone else, something else, was following us. I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing, just darkness. You're quiet, Alex said. Usually people talk more when they're nervous. You're hiding something. I'm just tired, I replied, my voice trembling slightly. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stopped mid-step, turned fully toward me, and smiled that same unnerving smile. I like quiet people, he said. Easier to keep. The word keep hung in the air like a guillotine. My stomach dropped. You're joking, I said, forcing a laugh, but my voice cracked. He shook his head. No, I'm serious. Most people don't understand me, but you might. That's when I saw it, just for a fraction of a second. Behind him in the shadows, a figure moved. Not a person, something else. Tall, thin, silent, watching. I blinked. It was gone. I think we should turn back, I said, voice firm this time. Alex's face darkened. We can't, he said. Not yet. Panic surged through me. I tried to pull my hand free, but his grip was iron. The alley seemed to stretch longer with every step, walls closing in. The air grew colder, and a wet metallic scent filled my nose. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint, almost inaudible, but unmistakable. Run. Did you hear that? I asked, voice shaking. Hear what? Alex said, smiling again, but the warmth was gone. The voice, I whispered. Someone's there. He leaned close and I could feel his breath, cold as ice. There's no one here but us. Don't worry. You're safe. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to. But the alley seemed alive now, shadows twisting and stretching, as if the darkness itself was reaching for me. Suddenly, something slammed against the wall behind me, a heavy, echoing thud. I jumped. Alex laughed softly, a low, unsettling sound. It's just the night. Don't be afraid. But fear had already rooted itself deep inside me. I tried to pull away again. This time, he let go, but only to step closer, closing the space between us. His eyes glinted unnaturally in the dim light. I'm going to take you somewhere, he said, voice low. Somewhere private, where no one can see us. You'll understand. No, I said, backing up. I want to go. Now. He frowned, almost disappointed. You don't get it. You can't leave yet. A sudden movement at the far end of the alley caught my attention. Shadows coalesced into a form, tall, thin, impossibly still. My heart pounded as I realized it was the figure from before. Not human. Too tall, too wrong. Its face was obscured, but its presence radiated something ancient, hungry. I screamed. Alex lunged forward, grabbing my arm. Shh! Don't scream! Don't! I wrenched free and ran, adrenaline burning through my veins. The alley seemed endless. Walls stretching, twisting, shadows swallowing the path ahead. Behind me, I heard him laughing, low, melodic, terrifying. Then the figure emerged, gliding toward me. I stumbled, tripping over the uneven pavement. My hands scraped against the bricks as I tried to get up. Its shadow loomed over me, impossibly tall, impossibly dark. Something cold touched my shoulder. I spun around. Alex was there, smiling, calm. You can't run from me. I scrambled, finding a fire escape ladder. With all the strength I had, I climbed, my hands raw, my legs trembling. I reached the top, gasping for breath, and looked down. The alley was empty. No figure, no Alex, but the metallic scent remained. The feeling of being watched didn't leave. I didn't stop running until I reached my apartment. Once inside, I locked every door and window, shaking uncontrollably. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We'll meet again, soon." I deleted the message. I never used that app again. I avoided dating altogether, but sometimes late at night, when the city is quiet, I feel it. The watching, the whisper in the dark, the memory of those green eyes smiling, knowing, waiting. And I know somewhere out there, Alex Mercer is still looking. Story 2. When he knows where you sleep. I thought I had escaped him. That night in the alley, with my heart pounding and my hands scraped raw from the fire escape, had felt like my final brush with Alex Mercer. I told myself that deleting the app, changing my number, and avoiding dating altogether would be enough. That it would be over. It wasn't. It started small. At first it was subtle, a shadow in the corner of my apartment, the faint creak of a floorboard that I swore I hadn't stepped on. The city outside hummed with life, but inside my apartment, silence became a trap. Then came the messages, not on my phone, not through email, but small notes. Folded slips of paper slipped under my door, even though I lived on the 10th floor. One read, "You looked beautiful tonight." I didn't know what to do. I called the police once, trying to report a possible stalker, but without a name or clear evidence, there was nothing they could do. And I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want anyone to know that I had gone on a date with a man who was now haunting my life. I became paranoid. Every noise made me jump. Every knock on the door made my chest seize. I barely slept. And when I did, nightmares of the alley, of Alex's sharp smile, and that tall, shadowy figure clawing at me filled my dreams. One night, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the bedside table. It was an unknown number, one I hadn't seen before. My hands trembled as I answered. "Hello?" "Don't be scared," a voice said, calm, almost soothing. But my blood ran cold the instant I recognized it. "Alex?" I whispered. "Of course," he said. "You can't escape me. Not completely." I dropped the phone. My hand shook so violently I could barely pick it up. I don't understand," I stammered. How do you know where I live?" A chuckle, low and musical, filled the room. "I told you, I like quiet people. Easier to keep. You've been hiding, but I can always find you. I always find what I want." I ran to the window and peered out, half expecting to see him on the street below. The city was alive with night traffic, pedestrians, neon lights, but no Alex. Yet I felt him. The air around me seemed charged, heavy with his presence, as if the walls themselves were listening. That night I didn't sleep. Not a wink. The next day I tried to keep my routine normal. I went to work, hoping the normalcy of coffee machines, fluorescent lights, and the hum of keyboards would soothe my nerves. But even in the office, I felt watched. My phone buzzed constantly, texts and images that weren't sent by anyone I knew. Pictures of my apartment door, my mailbox, even one taken from the hallway as I left my building. I couldn't breathe. Desperate, I reached out to a friend I hadn't seen in years, someone who might help me think clearly. His name was Nathaniel Gray, a journalist with a knack for following obscure leads. "Alex Mercer," I told him in a hushed tone after showing him the photos. He's not normal. I went on a date with him, And now he's stalking me. I can feel it, Nathaniel. I can feel him around me. Nathaniel frowned. Stalking is serious. We need to document everything. Phones, photos, emails, everything. But you said he's not normal. What do you mean by that? I hesitated. There was something else. In the alley, behind him, a figure, tall, thin, watching me. It wasn't human. I know it sounds crazy, but I've seen it. Nathaniel's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't dismiss me. Okay, let's start with the facts we can prove. Then we'll see what else is going on. That night I tried to sleep again. I left all the lights on, even the small lamp in the hallway. But the shadows still moved. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to the sound of my door handle turning. Slowly, deliberately. I froze. It stopped. Then faint scratching sounds like nails against wood echoed through the apartment. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from an unknown number. Don't hide. I know where you sleep. The words burned into my mind. My heart raced so fast it felt like it might explode. I grabbed a kitchen knife, my hands shaking uncontrollably, and waited in the darkness. Minutes passed like hours. Then the scratching stopped. Silence returned, oppressive and suffocating. I called Nathaniel. He tried to calm me, but I could hear his skepticism in his voice. You need to get out of there, he said finally. Sleep somewhere else. A hotel, maybe. Just don't stay in that apartment tonight. I took his advice. I packed a bag and left my apartment, leaving the lights on to give the illusion I was still there. The streets at night were eerily quiet, the neon signs flickering like warning signals. I checked every corner, every shadow, but there was no sign of Alex. I arrived at a small boutique hotel downtown. The receptionist was cheerful, the kind of normal that felt almost surreal after the terror I had just escaped. I asked for a room on the top floor, far from the street. I thought I was safe. Sleep didn't come. The hotel room, though normal in every sense, felt wrong. Shadows pooled in corners, stretching unnaturally. I checked the locks, pulled the curtains tight, and curled into the bed, clutching the knife. At 2:03 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A picture. It was me, sleeping. I bolted upright. The room was locked. No windows open. No one could have, except him. A message followed. I told you, I always find what I want, and I want you. I screamed. I don't even remember pressing the keys, but somehow I was dialing Nathaniel again. This isn't possible, I said, voice breaking. He's here. He's watching me. How? How is he doing this? Nathaniel's voice was calm, but I could sense his concern. I don't know, but we need to document this. Everything. Don't delete anything. Pictures, messages, everything. I'll help you. But you need to stay alive, okay? Just survive tonight. The hours dragged. Every shadow seemed alive. Every whisper of wind against the window felt like a voice calling my name. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. I wanted to believe I was safe, but I wasn't. Then I heard it. Soft, deliberate tapping. Not at the door, not at the window. Inside the room, on the walls, on the ceiling. I turned on every light. The sound continued, moving around the room. My mind raced. Suddenly, the tall shadow appeared in the corner of the room. Just a dark outline at first, shifting, stretching, impossible. And then behind it, I saw him. Alex, smiling. The same hypnotic green eyes, the same terrifying grin. Hello, he whispered. Did you miss me? I screamed, running to the door. But it was gone. Locked. Windows? Locked. The shadow moved, closing the space between me and him. I could feel its cold presence, suffocating, pressing against me. Alex laughed, low, musical, terrifying. You can't escape. Not now. Not ever. Everything went black. I woke the next morning in my bed, my apartment bed. The hotel, gone. The knife, gone. My phone, silent. No messages, no pictures. Had it been a dream? A hallucination? Then on my kitchen counter, a single slip of paper. You can run, but you can't hide. Tonight I'll be closer than ever. And that's when I realized he didn't need the alley, the app, or even the shadows to find me. He knew. He always knew. I don't know what's worse, the stalking, the fear, or the knowledge that wherever I go, he's there, watching, waiting, smiling. And now I understand something I didn't before. Some dates aren't just bad. Some dates follow you home. Forever. Story 3, he knows every step you take. The fear didn't leave me. Not after last night. Not after the message. Tonight, I'll be closer than ever. I told myself I was overreacting. I tried. I took long walks, avoided mirrors, even tried to sleep sitting up on the couch. But Alex wasn't imaginary. The fear that had settled in my chest wasn't paranoia. It was reality. I knew it. It started with small things again. Footsteps behind me when I took the stairs, though I lived alone. A cold draft where no window was open. My reflection in mirrors flickering for a fraction of a second longer than it should, as if someone else was standing behind me. And then there were the messages, always short, always terrifyingly precise. I see you. You can't hide. You ran last night. Did you think it would help? I deleted my phone, smashed the SIM card, but somehow the messages kept coming. Every device I owned, tablet, laptop, even my smart home assistant, started sending me these cryptic, invasive texts. I was losing my mind. I reached out to Nathaniel again. I think he's following me everywhere, I said over the phone, voice shaking. Even when I leave the apartment, even in public, he's inside everything. Nathaniel was silent for a moment. Then he said calmly, but with an edge I had never heard before, then we need to understand him, where he comes from, and what he really is. What do you mean? I don't know yet, but what you're describing, it's not normal. It's not human. If he can appear anywhere, if he can manipulate electronics, if shadows move for him, he's something else, something predatory, and he's fixated on you. That was when I realized it wasn't just a man stalking me. That tall, thin figure in the alley, that thing was part of it, part of him, watching, waiting, controlling the spaces I occupied. That night I tried a new approach. I left my apartment with no destination, wandering aimlessly. My heart pounded as I checked every shadow. The city felt alive, but oppressive, almost as if the streets themselves were conspiring against me. I ended up at a 24-hour diner. The fluorescent lights buzzed, humming with artificial life. People were sparse. I sat in a corner, clutching a coffee cup like a lifeline. Then I saw him, Alex. He wasn't sneaking, hiding, or creeping. He was sitting at a booth on the far side of the diner, smiling at me, calm, casual, as if he had always been there. I froze. He waved. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I couldn't. My body refused. My mind screamed to flee, but my legs wouldn't move. "Hi," he said when I finally managed a shaky whisper. "You look tense, nervous." I don't understand," I stammered. "How did you get here?" He shrugged, that same disarming grin plastered across his face. "I told you, I always find what I want." My coffee cup shook in my hand. The diner felt unreal. The lights flickered slightly, shadows shifting unnaturally along the walls. And behind him, in the corner, I saw it again. The figure. The thin, impossibly tall shadow. Its presence pressed against me like a physical weight. I realized something horrifying. The diner hadn't been open when I entered. I had passed it earlier. The shadows shouldn't have moved. Alex leaned across the table. "You're beginning to see it, aren't you? I'm not like other men. I told you. I like quiet people. Easier to keep." I bolted. I ran through the streets, adrenaline carrying me past streetlights and alleys I thought I knew. I didn't stop until I reached a small public train station. My hands gripped the metal railings, my chest burning. And then I felt it, cold, impossibly heavy, on my shoulder. I spun around. Alex, smiling, calm, and behind him, the figure, watching, hungry. "You can't escape," Alex said softly, "but I can guide you. Don't fight me. It's easier that way." I didn't know whether to scream or throw myself into the train tracks. I ran onto the platform hoping the train would come, hoping the lights, the motion, the public space would protect me. It didn't. The lights flickered, shadows stretched, and the tall figure moved closer. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It had substance. Its limbs elongated unnaturally, bending at impossible angles. Its face, obscured, yet I could feel it staring into my soul. Alex whispered, "It wants you too, but it's patient. I've taught it to wait." I didn't sleep that night. I didn't dare. The next day I tried hiding in plain sight. I walked through crowded streets, coffee shops, bookstores, anything to mask myself in anonymity. But no matter where I went, I felt the weight of his gaze. My mind fractured between rational thought and creeping panic. Then I received an envelope at work, no return address. Inside was a photograph. It was me, standing outside a store I had passed 20 minutes ago. Behind me, Alex, smiling. And there, looming just over his shoulder, the tall figure, impossibly thin, impossibly still. A note accompanied it. "See, I told you I always find what I want, and I want you." I tore the photo apart, burned it, but the fear remained. It wasn't just him anymore. It was them, and I was the prey. I reached out to Nathaniel again. This time my voice broke completely. "He's everywhere," I whispered, "even in broad daylight. I saw the figure behind him. It's following me." Nathaniel's voice dropped lower, urgent. "You need to leave the city, now. Pack a bag. Don't take anything that can be traced. Hide somewhere remote. He won't expect it, and it might buy you time. But he's intelligent, patient, dangerous. He'll find you eventually." I did what he said. I left. I took the first train out of the city, then another and another. I changed hotels multiple times, every night moving farther from the urban sprawl I had once called home. But even in isolation, I felt it. The cold presence in the corner of every room, the subtle shift in shadows. Then the messages began again. Not texts, emails, photos, notes slipped under hotel doors. Even my luggage seemed tampered with, zipped open, rearranged. And the last one, sent from an untraceable number, made my blood run cold. You can run, you can hide, but every step you take, I am closer than you know. I realized then that I wasn't just being stalked, I was being hunted. And no matter how far I ran, Alex Mercer, and whatever that thing was, would always find me. Story 4. The Walls Have Eyes. I thought I had escaped. I thought that moving from city to city, hotel to hotel, would keep me safe. But by the fourth night, I realized something horrifying. I was never safe. It started subtly at first. A faint scratching at the walls, whispers just below the threshold is hearing. But then, the signs became impossible to ignore. In one hotel room, I awoke to a wet, sticky sensation on my arm. I flicked on the lights and found nothing. Yet the smell of iron, blood, lingered in the air. I tried to convince myself it was a dream, a hallucination, but deep down I knew the truth. Alex and that thing were already there. Watching, testing, I couldn't breathe. The next day I checked into another hotel, a remote location outside the city, hoping isolation would help. I stayed on the top floor, away from the elevators, the stairwells, anywhere that might allow someone to follow. It didn't help. That night at precisely 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. The screen was blank except for a single word. Look. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. Slowly I turned toward the window. There, reflected in the dark glass, was a shadow, a silhouette, tall, impossibly thin, unmoving. Behind it, Alex, smiling, watching me. I spun around. The room was empty. The lights were on, the door locked, but the reflection remained. I realized then, it wasn't just shadows. It wasn't just windows. He had invaded my perception itself. And that's when I heard it, a whisper from behind my bed. You can't hide. I backed up, tripping over the edge of the bed. My hands scraped the floor. I reached for the knife I always kept beside me, but it felt heavy, clumsy in my grip. Then the lights went out. The darkness wasn't normal. It pressed against me, thick and suffocating, and I felt movement. Not footsteps, but sliding, gliding. The air grew colder, freezing my breath. The whispers multiplied, forming words I could barely hear. Run! Scream! Fight! It won't help! And then I saw it, Alex standing inches from me, but I had not seen him enter. His green eyes glimmered like fire in the blackness. Behind him, the tall figure loomed, its limbs bent at impossible angles, its head tilted, studying me, hungry. You can't escape, Alex said softly. This is where it begins. I ran. I don't remember how I reached the stairwell, only that I did. Every step echoed unnaturally, as if the building itself had grown taller while I slept. Shadows coalesced in the corners, stretching, writhing. The tall figure followed, silent, gliding over walls, floor, and ceiling. I reached the lobby and found it empty. Normally, someone would have been at the reception desk. Not tonight. The glass doors were locked, though I had the key card. The city outside looked wrong. Streets empty, lights flickering, an unnatural fog settling over everything. And then I saw them, figures in the fog, standing, watching. Not human, not fully shadow, watching me, waiting. Alex appeared beside me, calm as ever. They're curious, he said. They like what I bring. You're special. I stumbled backward. What are they? He smiled. That smile that had haunted me since the alley. Friends, guides, hunters, all the same. You'll see soon enough. The next day, or what I assumed was the next day, brought no relief. Food tasted wrong. The lights flickered. Every reflective surface showed them. The tall figure behind Alex. Others in the shadows I couldn't account for. I tried calling Nathaniel, but the line went dead. My laptop refused to boot. Every device I owned, dead. Alex didn't need technology anymore. He had learned, adapted, controlled. By evening, I realized something truly terrifying. I wasn't just being hunted. My reality itself was being altered. The city no longer followed its normal rules. Streets looped endlessly. Buildings shifted when I wasn't looking. Shadows stretched impossibly long. I couldn't escape, because escape didn't exist. I tried hiding in an abandoned warehouse, thinking distance and dereliction might protect me. I stayed quiet, trembling, clutching my knife. But as the sun set, I heard movement, soft, deliberate. Footsteps on metal grates, a sliding across concrete, the smell of iron again. Then a voice, soft, melodic, and horrifying. "You thought you could hide?" I turned. Alex stood in the doorway, perfectly composed, smiling. Behind him, the tall figure. And more, dozens of silhouettes forming from the darkness, all watching, waiting. I ran deeper into the warehouse, but the layout was wrong. Doors led to rooms I didn't remember. Windows opened onto alleys that didn't exist. The tall figure glided silently behind me, always just out of reach, yet close enough to feel its hunger. I reached a room with a broken mirror and froze. Reflected in the glass were not just me and Alex, but dozens of versions of me, trapped, screaming silently. The whispers intensified. Alex leaned against the mirror, smiling. "Do you see now? You're never alone, never safe. Every step you take, I am there. Every breath, I am there. And they are always watching." I slashed at the mirror, shards scattering across the floor. But they reflected me again, trapped, endless. I don't know how long I ran. Hours? Days? Time had stopped obeying the rules I knew. Every room, every street, every shadow carried them. The tall figure was always there. Alex always ahead, always smiling. And whispers, low and constant, filled my mind. Then I realized something horrifying. They weren't just stalking me. They were teaching me, showing me that escape was impossible, that resistance was futile, that I belonged to them. I collapsed in a dark corner, knife clutched in trembling hands. Alex crouched beside me, calm, soothing, terrifying. "It doesn't have to be painful," he whispered. "I can make it easier." I shook my head, tears burning. "No, I won't. I won't belong to you." He smiled. "Oh, you already do. You just don't know it yet." The tall figure moved closer, gliding over me, over the floor. Shadows wrapped around me, cold and suffocating. And I realized then, fully in that infinite, twisted warehouse, with reflections of myself screaming silently in broken mirrors, I could never escape him. Not Alex, not the figure, not the shadows, not reality itself. I had run as far as I could. Now I was trapped. Story 5. Close enough to feel my breath. I stopped counting the days, or maybe they stopped counting themselves. Sleep was impossible. Time had warped into an endless loop of fear, shadows, and whispers. Alex was everywhere, always watching, always waiting. It wasn't just stalking anymore. It was hunting. The first sign that tonight would be different was the knocking. Low, deliberate, slow. 3 knocks at my door. I froze. My hands shook violently. I was hiding in a hotel room in the middle of nowhere, convinced isolation would save me. But I knew better. No one knocks like that. The doorknob turned slowly, then stopped. A shadow stretched across the gap at the bottom of the door. I felt it, long and thin, sliding across the floor like liquid darkness. Then I heard his voice, low and melodic, filling the room without a sound. "Open the door." I shook my head. "No, leave me alone." A click. The door locked from the inside. I hadn't touched the lock. My heart pounded in my ears. "I don't think so," Alex said softly. "I like it better when you listen." I ran to the bathroom, locking myself inside. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, flickering like a dying heartbeat. Shadows pooled in the corners. That tall figure moved silently outside the door, its elongated limbs scraping softly against the walls. watching. "You can scream," Alex whispered, voice echoing strangely. "It won't matter. They like it." I didn't understand at first. They? Who were they? But then I realized. The figure in the alley, the reflections, the shadows in every corner. They weren't just following me. They were part of him. Part of them. I pressed myself against the cold tiles, knife clutched tightly. Then the whispers started. Hundreds of them. Hundreds of voices, low, urgent, incomprehensible. "Run! You belong! He is here!" I wanted to cry. I wanted to die. I wanted it all to stop. I bolted out of the bathroom, running blindly into the hallway. The hotel corridor stretched impossibly long, turning corners that shouldn't exist. Shadows slithered along the walls, converging behind me, in front of me, everywhere. I couldn't tell which way to go. Then I saw him, Alex Mercer, standing at the end of the hallway, calm, smiling, watching. "You can't escape," he said. "Not here, not anywhere. But tonight, you'll understand." Behind him, the tall figure moved closer, its limbs bent impossibly, shadows stretching into the ceiling and floor, warping space as it advanced. I ran toward the elevator, pressing the button frantically. The doors opened. To nothing. Blackness. I screamed. The hotel lobby had changed. It wasn't the lobby anymore. Walls stretched impossibly tall. Light twisted unnaturally. Shadows moved independently of any source. I realized with horror that I was no longer in the hotel I had entered. Alex appeared beside me, effortlessly calm. "See? Reality is easier when you let me guide it. Stop running." I ran anyway. Down the lobby stairs, through hallways that looped endlessly, doors opening to rooms I'd never seen. Shadows pressed against me from every side. I could hear whispers calling my name, hundreds of them, each layered over the other, a chorus of terror. "Come with us. Belong. You cannot escape." Then the first strike. The tall figure lunged impossibly fast. I barely dodged, but its shadow grazed my arm. Cold, deep, burning cold. Pain flared through my body as though something had bitten beneath my skin. I fell to the floor, clutching my arm. The shadows around me thickened, pulsating, alive. Alex knelt beside me, smiling. "Don't fight it. You'll understand soon," I screamed. "No, stay away from me." "You're mine," he said. His hand grazed my face, ice cold. His fingers burned like fire on my skin. And I always get what I want. I ran again, blindly, until I stumbled into a massive hall. The walls were lined with mirrors. Dozens of me reflected back, some screaming, some silent, some distorted beyond recognition. Each version of me trapped in their own reflection. The whispers intensified. Alex walked slowly through the hall, shadows twisting around him like tendrils. The tall figure followed. "Every step you take, every breath, I feel it. I control it. You are already mine." I tried to break a mirror with my knife. Shards scattered across the floor, but my reflection remained, shrieking, alive, clawing at the glass. I realized then that I wasn't just being hunted. I was being absorbed, slowly. Each reflection, each shadow, each whisper, taking pieces of me. Hours or maybe minutes later, I collapsed in the center of the hall, exhausted, terrified. Alex knelt beside me. "It's easier if you accept it," he whispered. "You'll be part of something greater. They will like you. I will like you. You are mine." I shook my head, sobbing. I'll never let you." He smiled, calm, cold, cruel. "You don't get to choose." And then the tall figure moved, faster than my eyes could follow. Its limbs wrapped around me, not harming but enclosing, suffocating, containing. I could feel shadows pressing against my chest, whispering, pulling me into their cold embrace, and Alex leaned close enough to feel my breath. I don't remember what happened next. I woke on the floor of a hotel room, or something like a hotel room. My knife was gone. Shadows lingered, subtly moving in the corners. The room smelled faintly of iron. My arm burned where the tall figure had grazed me. On the bed, a note written in a handwriting I didn't recognize. Tonight was practice. Soon you'll understand fully. Don't resist. And beneath it, a small card with a single word. Soon. I realized then the truth. Alex Mercer wasn't just a man. He was something else. Something ancient, patient, predatory. And the figure, the tall, thin, impossibly wrong thing, was part of him. Or maybe a servant. I didn't know. But I knew this. I could never run again. Every hotel, every city, every street, every shadow, I was trapped. He could follow me anywhere. He could warp reality to his will. And every day, every night, the shadows would remind me of it. I have no safe place left. Not in the city, not in the wilderness, not in my own mind. All I can do is wait. Wait for the next encounter. Wait for him to come. And hope somehow I survive. Story 6. He sees the darkest corners of your mind. I no longer counted the nights, or the days. Time had dissolved into a constant haze of fear. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every creak in the floorboards. Alex was there, always there, watching, waiting, smiling. But fear, I realized, was not enough. Survival demanded action. I had to understand him. I reached out to Nathaniel one last time, my voice trembling over the phone. Listen, I said, clutching the receiver like a lifeline. He's not just stalking me. He's something else. I think he's supernatural. And the figure, the tall one from the alley, it's part of him. Or he controls it. I don't know, but I can't just run anymore. I have to know who, or what, he really is. Nathaniel was silent for a long moment. Then, you're right. You can't outrun him forever. But if you want a chance, you need knowledge. Research everything. Legends, disappearances, myths. Anything about shadow entities, predatory spirits, obsessions. I'll help you piece it together. But be careful. He knows what you're doing. I hung up and began digging. Hours became days. I scoured old newspaper archives, online forums, obscure folklore records, even occult libraries in the farthest reaches of the internet. And slowly, terrifyingly, I found patterns. There were reports, missing people, shadows following them, obsessive figures stalking victims to isolation. Witnesses described green-eyed men, impossibly charismatic, always accompanied by a tall, thin figure. Some reports dated back decades, others centuries, always the same. Alex Mercer, or names strikingly similar. Always patient, always hunting. And then I found it, a manuscript, old and brittle, in a forgotten library database, handwritten, nearly illegible in places. It described an entity that bonds with a human host, giving it immortality and predatory power. The host lures victims, feeding on their fear, slowly bending reality around them. The shadow is the entity's extension, a manifestation of its hunger and control. I shivered. The description matched Alex perfectly. The tall figure, it was not human, not a shadow. It was an extension of him, a living tool of terror. I realized then what Alex had meant. I belonged to him already, not just physically but psychologically. He was reshaping my mind, teaching me through terror. That night, I felt his presence before I even opened the hotel door. Shadows pooled in the hallway, unnaturally long, stretching toward me. I stumbled back, clutching my bag. "You're curious," his voice whispered from nowhere and everywhere. "I like that. Curiosity keeps you alive. For now." I fled into the room, slamming the door. The lights flickered. The shadows inside twisted, forming impossible shapes. And then he appeared. Alex, smiling, calm, watching. The tall figure lingered behind him, waiting. "You're learning," he said. "Good, very good. Soon you'll understand your place." I shook my head. "I'll never be yours." "Oh, you are," he said softly, "but you don't know it yet. Fear, terror, it's the teacher, and you, my student." Over the next hours, or maybe days, I realized the horrifying extent of his power. The shadows could move through walls. Objects shifted subtly in my room. Mirrors showed me things I didn't want to see. My own reflection, screaming silently, hands clawing at me, eyes wide with fear I hadn't yet felt but would. And the whispers were everywhere. I could hear them inside my skull, murmuring my secrets, my fears, my darkest thoughts. Alex didn't need to touch me. He only needed me to know he was there. I tried resisting, I tried reasoning, I tried running. None of it worked. He could bend the world around him, bend me, make me doubt everything I saw, everything I felt. Then came the first direct confrontation. I was walking through an abandoned warehouse, thinking I could find a moment of isolation. I needed to face him, to understand, to fight back. The shadows thickened immediately, and Alex appeared, calm, smiling, his eyes glowing unnaturally. "Why do you fight it?" he asked. "It's easier if you accept it." "I'll never accept it," I yelled. "I'm not yours." He tilted his head. The shadows behind him writhed, forming shapes. Figures emerged, dozens of them, reflections of past victims, trapped in fear and terror, silent but screaming in their eyes. "You see them," Alex said. "They tried to resist. You can too, but it hurts. Fear is the key. Pain is the teacher. You will learn." The tall figure lunged at me. I barely dodged, knife raised. But it wasn't attacking physically. It pressed against my mind, sending visions of impossibility, of endless corridors, of shadows pulling me under. I screamed, collapsing to my knees. Alex knelt beside me, close enough to feel my breath, and I did. I could smell him, feel his presence pressing into my chest, a cold fire that burned deeper than flesh, and in that moment I understood. He could touch my mind as easily as my body. I ran, somehow. Somehow I reached the streets, gasping, trembling, bleeding from the scratches the shadows had carved into me. I ducked into a small cafe, hoping the normality would protect me, but it didn't. I looked up and saw him, sitting at a corner booth, calm, smiling, waiting. The tall figure hovered behind him, silent. I realized with terror, there is no place in the world he cannot reach. I collapsed into a chair, trembling. The cafe staff and patrons ignored him completely. They couldn't see him. I was alone with him in a public place, and yet no one else knew he existed. "You're stronger than the others," he whispered. "That's why I enjoy our game. That's why I chose you. Soon, very soon, you'll belong to me fully." And I realized with horror that the only way to survive was to fight him. Somehow I had to find a weakness. I started documenting everything, every sighting, every shadow, every whisper. I knew now that the tall figure wasn't a separate entity. It was part of Alex, a manifestation of his predatory mind. If I could understand it, maybe I could manipulate it, maybe even escape it. But every time I thought I had a plan, he appeared, always calm, always smiling, always closer than I could measure. I was running out of options. The final horror of the night came when I returned to my temporary hotel. The door was open, my bag untouched, but a note lay on the bed. You think you can fight? You think knowledge protects you? Pathetic. You are mine, and I am eternal. And beneath it, a single drawing, a stick figure, trembling, trapped inside a dark tower. Shadows stretched from the walls, climbing over the figure, and in the corner, unmistakable, Alex's eyes green and smiling. I fell to the floor, sobbing. I understood then that the nightmare wasn't just stalking, wasn't just shadows. It was inescapable. Alex didn't just follow you. He consumed your world, your mind, your reality, and the shadows, the tall figure. They were extensions of him, teaching me fear, obedience, and eventual surrender. I have no place left to hide, no corner of the world untouched, no reality untouched. All that's left is waiting, waiting for the moment he decides I am ready to fully belong. Story 7. The moment he takes you. I knew it was coming. Every shadow, every whisper, every flicker of light had led to this. I could feel it deep in my chest, a pulsing certainty that tonight would be different. Tonight, Alex Mercer would either claim me fully or I would end him. I had prepared. Not weapons, not traps, not prayers. Those were useless against him. No physical object could stop what he had become. Knowledge was my only tool. Understanding him, the figure, the shadows. Maybe, just maybe, that could give me a chance. But I also knew something terrifying. Even understanding him might not be enough. I left my temporary hotel at nightfall, wandering the streets like a ghost. Shadows clung to every corner, twisting unnaturally, lengthening, reaching. I felt them all around me, Alex's presence overlaying reality itself. Then I saw him, sitting on the edge of a fountain, perfectly calm. Green eyes glinting in the lamplight, smile disarming, predatory, and behind him, the tall figure, looming impossibly, limbs bending in unnatural angles, head tilted toward me as if tasting the air of my fear. "You've been busy," he said softly, "learning about me, learning about us. You think knowledge will help you? That's cute, very cute." I gritted my teeth. "I'm not yours." He tilted his head. "You already are. But tonight we finish our lesson." I realized then that the fountains, the streets, the city, they had all transformed. Shadows stretched and warped, forming walls where none existed. The tall figure glided along these walls, closing the space around me. "Do you see now?" Alex whispered. "You are trapped. There is nowhere to hide, no friend, no light, no escape." I remembered Nathaniel's warning. Knowledge was my weapon. I focused. I recalled the manuscript, the accounts, the descriptions of the figure. It was tethered to Alex. Its power was derived from fear, my fear. And if I could control that fear, maybe I could weaken it. I squared my shoulders, staring at the figure. My heart hammered, every instinct screaming at me to run. But I didn't. I controlled the panic, the dread, the terror. I focused. "You feed on me," I said, voice trembling but firm. "You need my fear to exist." Alex's smile faltered slightly. The shadows flickered. The tall figure wavered, indecisive, its limbs twitching unnaturally. "Interesting," he murmured. "You think defiance matters? You think knowledge gives you power? You are mine regardless." "No," I said, voice rising. "I refuse. I stepped toward the fountain, holding my knife, but not to strike. The blade was useless, but the movement was symbolic. The tall figure advanced, shadowy tendrils stretching toward me, but I focused, imagining it dissipating, imagining it powerless without fear to feed on. The figure paused, its elongated form quivering, limbs twitching like a puppet losing strings. Alex's eyes narrowed, green fire burning brighter. "Do you think you can defy me?" he hissed. "I've lived centuries. I've broken minds, swallowed souls, bent reality itself. You cannot win." "I don't care," I yelled. "You only exist because I let you, and I'm not afraid anymore." For the first time since this nightmare began, the air shifted. Shadows recoiled slightly. The tall figure writhed, twisting unnaturally, as if in pain. Alex's expression changed, just slightly, but it was enough. Fear, my fear, had been his power, and now I was controlling it. "Impossible," he whispered. You cannot control it." "Watch me," I said, voice steady. I concentrated, imagining the tall figure collapsing into nothingness, imagining the shadows folding in on themselves, imagining Alex alone, human, mortal, vulnerable. And then it happened. The figure staggered. Limbs collapsed unnaturally. A high-pitched wailing filled the air. Not human, not animal. The shadows shrieked, twisting like living smoke, but they shrank, drawing back from me. Alex stumbled, startled, anger flickering in his eyes. "You," he began, but I cut him off. "Leave me. I am not yours." He lunged at me, but now I could see the cracks in his form. The shadows around him faltered. The figure was tethered, dependent. My focus, my defiance, my absence of fear weakened him. I grabbed the nearest reflective surface, a puddle of water in the fountain, and stared at him through it. Mirrors, reflections, puddles. They distorted him, trapped him, showed him as he truly was. A predator bound to shadows, not omnipotent, not immortal. He hissed furious, tendrils of shadow lashing outward, but they wavered, ineffective. I felt a strange exhilaration. I could beat him, not fully perhaps, but enough to survive. The confrontation became a blur of motion, shadows, and fear. The tall figure tried to lunge. Alex attacked, but I stayed focused. Each step I took, each breath I drew without fear, weakened them. Reality bent less, shadows recoiled, and the world began to stabilize. "You think this ends here?" Alex spat. "This is eternal. You belong to me." "Not if I refuse," I yelled. The shadows screamed and dissipated. The tall figure dissolved like smoke. Alex stumbled backward, human now, vulnerable. For the first time, I saw him as a man, not the unstoppable predator, but someone who relied on terror to exist. I ran. I didn't stop. Streets, alleys, buildings. Normal, real, safe. For the first time in what felt like forever, I breathed without the weight of him pressing on me. But a final terror remained. Weeks later, I returned home. I thought it was over. Shadows gone. Fear controlled. Alex defeated, or at least contained. Then a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a small slip of paper. "Impressive," it read. "But remember, fear is infinite. I am patient, and I will find you again. One day, I will take you." I dropped it. My hands shook. My heart raced. I survived. For now. But I know deep down that Alex Mercer never truly dies. He waits. He watches. And one day, he will come again. And when he does, I will be ready.